Ask the Podcast Coach for August 22nd, 2015.
Let's get ready to podcast.
Oh, there it is. We're off and rolling, kind of like a roller coaster. Keep your hands and arms, or your arms and hands, whatever you want to keep inside the ride. That's always fun. Welcome to Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I am Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com, and joining me as always, I didn't come up with a fun, witty banner thing this week. Not just for no. Now, flavored with Splenda, the one and only Jim Collison. Although you were sweet already, but now.
Thanks, Dave. Completely calorie free. I think it's Jim Light.
It's the
zero calorie alternative to podcasting. Welcome back, Dave. Good to have you back. It was fun to control things, but not as much fun as you think it is. And so it's good to have you back in the chair.
Yeah, it's good to be back. It was interesting last week hiding behind the printer with Nick Suberling, which was great fun over at PodCamp Pittsburgh. But
it was fun to hear Nick's take of Podcast Pittsburgh on Podcasters Group Therapy this week. Right. He talks about it, and I'm really enjoying that podcast. Those guys do. Nick and Corey and Tani do a really nice job. And Tani's laugh is just infectious. If you hear her laugh, you just want to giggle along with her as she's laughing. So if you're a podcaster and you just need another podcast show to listen to besides this one, head over there to Podcasters Group Therapy.
BGT forever, baby. The thing that gets me about that show, it's hard to pick, because part of me goes, oh, Tawny makes that show because it's nice to have it. And then about that time, I'm like, you know what? But I like Nick's kind of little subtle humor, and he kind of keeps everything going. And then you go, no, it's Corey, because Corey this week just knocked it out of the park with all of his stuff about how he gets Facebook working.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, Nick is the hype man, right? For sure. He's the hype guy. And Tani definitely is the color commentator. She kind of brings in that, and she says things that normal podcasters won't say.
Right.
And so that's good. And then, and Corey's the straight guy. He just brings it just like it's supposed to be, just like it is. He's the straight reporter on that. So they've got a great combo. They have a nice mix in there. Cause I think on a lot of podcasts, a lot of the hosts try to be all those things at the same time. And they don't. They have found their place, and I think they're on episode 20, and it's a good podcast. I look forward to it almost every week as they get that out.
Yeah, but it's always good. That's the whole thing. I know there for a while, Corey was running all over the place. And,
it's hard
and things like that. But when they bring it, they bring it.
The more hosts you add, you add complexity to it, and you add scheduling complexity to it, and so it just is. It's a chore, especially when you're going to have all three on every single week. If you're going to do something like that, it's going to and the more you add, it's going to change the complexity exponentially when you do that. So
it gets impossible after a while.
It does. It does for sure.
Well, and they've done what we've done. If you for when I'm not here, it's funny because we keep planning for me not to be here, and then I sneak in anyway. Speaking of that, thank you to Mike Dell from podcasthelpdesk.com last week for being the safety net. But so far I've been able to just connect in. It's weird. Part of me goes, you know what, Dave, you should just let it go. Just But I'm glad.
I think it's great when you come in that way.
Yeah.
It adds. I love that. The fact that we can do that is awesome, right? That I can just run it here, bring you in. You're doing that. I thought it was really good. Except I did miss seeing Nick shirtless. He promised he would go shirtless he would streak shirtless past you. That never happened.
I'm trying to think. I roomed with Nick. I don't think either of us blessed the other with the
shirtless.
We could have had a wet t-shirt contest, because I'm working on a solid C cup, I think, at this point. But anyway, hey, speaking of bringing it, you can bring it right now. No lines. That number is 347-850-8007. 340-850-8007. I know a couple weeks ago somebody said this really wasn't much of a Q&A show this week, and I'm like, hey, you guys got to bring the Q, and we will bring the A, and don't be shy. If you just found us, we're at askthepodcastcoach.com/live. We're here every Saturday at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time and 9:30. What would that be? Central, and then
8 Mountain and 7:30 Pacific.
Right, and 4 a.m. Korean and 2 something.
I think it's earlier than that. But
so, hey, I wanted to, I on my blog, which is at davidjackson.org, there was a guy that put out a post that said podcasting is pointless and it's a waste of time. And he does a podcast called Brock Party. And the name of the post is Maybe Your Podcast Just Sucks. So it's Dave, bringing the full snark. But it's weird. He says, podcasts are pointless. Anyone who tells you otherwise is the literal devil. No one is going to get rich or famous or gain any level of following from this new medium ever again because it's hilariously dead. So basically what this is, he did a phenomenal job of masking the podcasting is dead meme. We haven't heard this in a while. I've predicted it's kind of due, right? When we kind of said about, it's been a while that I said we're going to have a wave of podcasting is dead in the future. And he says, your idea to share acoustic observations about an ongoing TV show, pointless. Your idea to interview interesting people, laughably misguided. Your idea to discuss each individual episode of a decade-old CW show, which is the Gilmore Girls, is oddly enough, he says, successful. He points to the Gilmore Guys show. And I looked over, he basically is getting 125 downloads per episode because he publishes his stats. And what was interesting about it is he said the goal of his show was to get together with friends and get drunk. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. If that was the goal of your show, you've been highly successful. It was kind of interesting. But, and so to me, it's no fun to just go over and say, well, your show stinks. Because it was, here's the thing that got me. I finally listened to the whole thing and literally 35 minutes into it, these 2 women that he pulled in as guests admit that they're witches. Like they're in a coven. And I was like, what? Really? Wow. Okay. Now we got something going on. I want to hear what it's like to be a witch. I'm like, that's kind of different. Not everybody comes up and goes, hi, I'm a witch.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe. So he started off his show with a 3-minute song that I've never heard of. At 5 minutes, he finally introduces his guest, one of which he says, why don't you introduce yourself? Which to me always kind of sounds like I'm kind of throwing this together and I'll let you take that job, which he then admits later that he did. So it's just, there's a lot of improv in it and all sorts of other, he typed a whopping 32 words of show notes. And then I'm like, and I said, nothing screams great content like 4 people talking over each other.
Well, and nothing screams podcasting's dead from a podcaster whose podcast is not getting very many downloads and he's sounding a little bitter.
Yeah.
And so, because 125, that's close to the average, I think, 147 or whatever that is. It's close. And, hey, if you get 125, you get it. But it sounds to me like a guy who started it in the hype cycle, who thought, this is going to be big. And then
Mark Maron. Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't put it together and probably needs some help with this podcast as it is. And then gets a little bitter and says it's dead. It's anything but dead. The hype cycle is the largest it's ever been. There's so much going on around podcasting right now. Just, the fact that these conferences can draw, podcast movement could draw what it does, I think is a huge testimony that I think we're in a golden age of it right now. I think it's going to jump again. So it's going to go, it'll peak, it'll dip it'll never dip way back to where it was supposed to go. And then it'll spike up again. So I think it's not dead, not even close.
The thing I thought was interesting is his name is Brock Wilbur. And if you go to brockwilbur.com, he's actually got a really nice looking website. He's been on Comedy Central and he's got a really impressive resume.
Yeah, that's probably why.
But here's the interesting thing. In iTunes, it points like his podcast is on a god ugly Podbean website.
Ugh.
And I was like, wait a minute. You're all your fans are on your website. You put your podcast on a completely separate one. Okay. That's that. But it's so easy with Libsyn. And it's pretty easy with most hosting companies to copy that and put it on whatever website you want. Sure, let Podbean do your RSS feed if that's how you want to handle it. But I was like, wait a minute, all your traffic's over on your really nice looking website. There's another. So it was just one of those where it's like, I didn't want to just, say, okay, here's, I was kind of like, here's what I would do,
right.
And I was just like, the fact that I listened to him, like, wait a minute, if you had told me today we're going to talk to 2 witches, I would have listened to that episode. But instead, it's just like, they start talking about one of the guests, apparently, and I'm assuming they're all comedians, is in a musical about Tanya Harding. And I'm like, how very 1991 of you.
Well, it's original.
Yeah, I was like,
at least it's original. I've never heard of anything like that. A musical about Tanya Harding.
Yeah, so it was different, but I just
sounds like he needs a coach, though. I mean, right? He sounds like he needs somebody to kind of come in and say, "Hey, dude, there's some better ways to
do this.
You can clean this up, and you can clean that up." I think he probably it sounds like his material is there, but when it comes to podcasting, he's just maybe a little unprepared or doesn't know all the ways to get it done, more efficient ways and things like that. He could probably double or triple his audience with just a few small changes. Podbean and some of although you can do it with Podbean. It's not really where it's hosted. It's how you advertise it that matters, right?
That's it. And that's my little equation. I always say the value in the episode multiplied by the amount you promote it equals number of downloads.
Yeah. The host provider really does nothing for you in most cases, right? You may get a little lift like on Spreaker. Well, they've promoted us before, both Gallup and my podcast. They put me on the front page and we get a little lift from that. That's always nice when you see your album artwork out on the front page of Spreaker. Sure. That's pretty cool. Yeah. But for the most part, I don't think you're going to get that's very, you're just putting your eggs in the wrong basket at that point. That media host isn't going to do that much. Now, with like Libsyn and Blueberry, there's a race. Those two companies are racing to get your business, and they keep adding some pretty awesome and some pretty cool features.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think about the rewrite that's going on at Blueberry right now. We had Mike on last week and talked about that, but there's a lot of features, and the stats are, the stat page is changing and coming. I mean, so as a podcaster, there's some great value in running on a Blueberry or running on a Libsyn or running on a Spreaker, which I think Rob is going to change Spreaker into that third option, right? When we think about host providers, I think that day is coming. I don't like their pricing plans at Spreaker. I wish they would change those. They're weird. They're just go unlimited, guys, and get a flat rate. That would be the best way, I think. Rob, if you're listening, if you can have any influence over there, follow the pattern and go flat pricing. Everybody else. Hey, Rob got it changed. I'm pretty sure this was Rob. The title now 140 characters, which is awesome, right? I mean, I think it was 40 before. It's like, what podcaster can make their title 40 characters? It never worked for me. So anyways, I think the host provider doesn't matter as much, although with these guys, Libsyn, Blueberry, Spreaker, they're making a race to say, hey, we've got great value added to you hosting here with us. Here's some additional things that you can do. So,
yeah. And I think the reason they have that different pricing plan is due to the fact that they have the live platform, right? And so you have somebody that's doing a, 5-hour show a day that's going to burn up, but there should be a way to do that though, so you don't have that cap. But,
you know what? The 5,000 10 hours that you get on their pro plan, and I forget the pricing on that. It's pretty pricey.
Yeah.
But that is almost impossible to fill up.
Yeah.
I mean, 5,000 hours is a ton. I mean, I've been on that plan now for 2 years, and I'm at like 4%, and I do 2 shows a week and sometimes 3. And so so if you look at Spreaker's plan, you look at 5,000, you're like, it is almost nearly unlimited. So I should probably, you're right. They've got it priced for the live stuff, and that makes sense. It stops somebody from coming on and streaming 24/7, right? And although take a long time, even at 24/7, to fill up 5,000 hours.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, hey, like I said, if you want to call in, that number is 347-850-8007. It's 347-850-8007. And if you want to join the chat, we are askthepodcastcoach.com/live. And silly me, I closed Slack because I didn't want it to beep at me. And now I have no idea what your topics are.
Oh, well, I can throw one in there. One of the things this week, I was actually challenged on 2 weeks ago here on the show from Mike Howard, was using Google AdSense and throwing the ads on my YouTube videos. And I hate those ads. I mean, I've said it right on the show. I am not a believer in ads on YouTube. I just hate them. I got to close them out. They get in the way. But Mike Howard walked me through some pretty compelling reasons when we think about money from a monetization standpoint, that's open. Those are air quotes for those of you who are on the audio only version of it. You can't see it, but and I've always been really skeptical. And Mike does, his YouTube channel is, I mean, he's no Mark Maron, but he's got some pretty good numbers. And my YouTube channel is maybe a fifth of his. And he kind of challenged me, hey, you're leaving money on the table. And so I reconsidered. I went back and turned on some monetization on my YouTube channel. And, lo and behold, and I'm not going to disclose numbers because I don't want to go there because it doesn't matter. It just depends on what your traffic is. But some things started clicking, and I'm like, well, okay, so maybe YouTube's not as bad as I thought it was from a monetization standpoint, because I always thought it was like, oh, it's pennies a month. That's kind of what I was thinking for it. And I think the more traffic, and it depends on your podcast, it depends on what you're putting on YouTube and those kinds of things, but it's so one of the strategies, because of that, I'm changing, or I'm thinking through. I have this show called Home Tech Tips, and it was always designed to be the short play show. And, YouTube plays well to the short play. I get the most negative comments I get on YouTube are about my show being too long, or I'm not getting to the point quick enough, because the YouTube generation wants to see things and, tell me how to fix my fridge in 10 seconds kind of thing, or that kind of stuff. Right. And so what we're doing is taking our long play show, and I'm pulling out 8 or 9 minute slices of it and stripping out all of the community stuff, right? We don't talk about who we are or what we are or how to find us on Twitter or any of those things. And I put a couple links in the show notes and stuff like that. But I'm throwing those up on YouTube and tying those all together on my blog and with YouTube. They're all tied together. So when you go to the long play show, the very first slide says, if you want to watch shorter versions of this, click on it. And it'll take you to my page, not a Google playlist. I want to keep them on my site. So I created a page, a post they can go to that has all the shortened sections of that podcast on a page. And in that way you can, I'm trying to listen to my audience who says, no, we want to listen to this, but we want a short version of it. Yet there are people in my community who depend on the long play for their commute. That's what they want. So it's a way of doing both. Now it absolutely takes more time.
I was going to ask. I guess that's like a lot more.
Another hour. It's another hour. Now, what I'm trying to do is figure out a way to work it in with my workflow, with my current workflow, because I already listened to the whole podcast as I'm writing the show notes. So what I'm doing is I'm doing show notes, and as I'm listening, I'm making marks, and then I can easily go back, pull those things out. And then I've been leaking those home tech tips during the week, because I'll get 3, 4, 5 of those out of each show. I've been just releasing those as I have time. They're not on a regular schedule, right? They're really designed for YouTube, not my blog. It'll work on the blog, and people can subscribe to them if they want. But it was just, Dave, it was just a way, I kind of got 3 things in one there. I got some YouTube advertising stuff going on. I got repurposing of my content going on, and I got the short versions of my show going on. So let me encourage you, if you're thinking about this, if you got a long play show, it's kind of like clamoring. You're doing your own clamor. It's not 18 seconds. Mine are about 6 or 7 minutes, but it's a way of loading YouTube with some shorter stuff, branded appropriately. The link to the full show is on every single one of those videos that I do. So people could click that and come back to the long show if they like it, right?
I thought about that for this show. Take just a question.
This would be perfect.
Yeah. And then have, here's where, whatever Kim talked about show notes. And then here's where, Michael Ray asked about such and such and things of that nature. And
no, I think it's perfect, and you get that. And the other thing about ads on YouTube, I don't think that say this, but I think those videos get better search rankings if they have AdSense turned on, or if they've got that monetization turned on, than if they don't. In other words, I think Google favors, why wouldn't it, right? Why wouldn't it favor in its search rankings videos that have monetization turned on? Because they make money off of it, right? So I don't know, little test, turned it on. The dollars started clicking on immediately. As soon as I turned on monetization, I started seeing some results. So I'm kind of testing that out again.
If I wanted monetization, I would actually have to create a brand new Google account.
Oh,
because I don't know why. This was 2007, 8-ish. Google turned off my, whatever that is. It's not AdWords, it's AdSense.
AdSense.
And I don't know if you've ever had a problem with Google. Have fun trying to get somebody to.
You won't do it.
You can't get anybody to go, what happened? So it's still weird because I made a post on my efforts to get somebody on Google. And literally like 2 seconds after I posted it, my phone rang from somebody saying they were from Google, and that about made me wet my pants. And I said, well, what's the deal? And he goes, you had like, a robot basically hitting my page. And I'm like, well, I didn't do that. And they're like, yeah, well, you have to send an email to so-and-so, which of course didn't work. So I've just kind of given up and said, well, I'm in their plan, but I can't kind of turn it on. And if I wanted to, I'd have to set up a completely different account. And then, but it's one of those again, where I love that, I got banned for something that I didn't do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What? So,
well, it's probably worth it to go in there and get that. Cause if it's been a while, for me, it's been so long. I haven't monetized in 2 years. Back in the day, AdSense and YouTube monetization were not together. Well, when they united Google Plus into everything, they added AdSense into Google or to YouTube. So you have to have your AdSense piece connected to your YouTube piece, connected to the head bone, and the head bones connect. Yeah. So you got to connect those two together to get it working. So I had to do that. I had to go over there and get all that thing set up and get it done. And then I didn't monetize everything. I went back, I don't know, maybe 40 videos. I went back and turned those on. And I'll just monetize from this point going forward.
It'll be interesting to watch and see what kind of gas money you
I'm predicting $5 to $7 a month for me. That's about 3,000 views a month is what I'm getting on my YouTube. Now, I think that's small, and my show it's inappropriate for that. It's not that big of a deal. Mike Howard is in a different, well, let me use Gallup because I didn't get permission to use Mike's numbers. So Gallup, we do 30,000 a month, and I think that might be in the $50 to $60 to $100 range, depending on which ads get served. Now at Gallup, we shut off monetization because my CEO does not want his products selling other products, and I totally get that, right? So it's completely gone. But at about 30,000, I think $50 to $100. Mike's in the chat room if he wants to share his numbers there. I'll let him do that, but that's kind of what I would predict. Hey. That, on a monthly basis, that gets you some pretty good hosting. If you had those kind of numbers, that would pay for some pretty good hosting over at Lip Center, Blueberry, or Spreaker.
Let's see who threw this in the chat room. Joe Taylor. Well, first of all, we haven't said this in a while. You don't ask, you don't get. 347-850-8007. 347-850-8007. Joe Taylor put a link to Donovan Atkinson. I can never say that guy's name. Who I've interviewed on the show. He has a show. He wrote a book about his first year in podcasting, and he's apparently bidding podcasting adieu. He started Atkinson Digital. Maybe that's part of it. Have a name that people can pronounce. I don't know. He says this is goodbye, at least to podcasting for now. And at the bottom, he clarifies. He says, I want to clarify or possibly reinforce a point that I was trying to make in this episode. My purpose for podcasting wasn't about making money, even though we'd all love to make a living doing something we love and are very passionate about. My goal in any of my podcasting endeavors was to try and make a difference. The numbers were just numbers and nothing more. Sure, the higher the numbers, the better one feels because your audience is growing. But if you're talking to 1,000 people and no one talks back, but you talk to 15 and you have an extensive conversation, I'd rather have the 15. I was never seeking accolades for what I was doing. I purposely geared this particular show to be somewhat controversial and try to stir up discussions, but it just didn't seem to be working. That's all. I think there are some great voices in the podcasting community, and I hope they continue to thrive and inspire. And by no means am I suggesting that my reasons for getting out, even if it winds up being just for a little while, should be anyone's reasons for leaving podcasting. Follow your own path. At the present time, I feel my path just isn't in this direction, but we'll see. So if he wants to come back, of course, I have to let him know that
no one will punch you in the face.
That's right. No one will punch you in the face. Thank you, Ryan K. Parker from Food. I cannot talk today. Isn't live
Saturday? It's Saturday.
Foodcraftsman.com.
Yeah, you got to slow down sometimes. I always find I try to talk too fast when it's live. I appreciate that he says in this, follow your own path.
Yep.
And that's, I mean, if you're on this hobby journey for podcasting, it really is about your own your own journey and your own past and trying stuff different. I mean, these home tech tips, this is the third time I've rebooted home tech tips to make it work. I have tried this. I tried home tech interviews. In fact, you were one of the folks I interviewed. It was you and Ray and Daniel. I interviewed the three of you about 2 years ago, and I was going to create this separate channel that was just going to be straight interviews. And that because I thought my listeners were coming to hear gadget stuff, right, at the day, or home tech stuff. I did 3. Didn't really go anywhere. And so I just kind of let it go its way, right? You just kind of ebb and flow. Dave, you're the king of this. I think you've started and stopped more podcasts or let them linger than anybody. And it's okay. Like Ryan says, no one's going to punch you in the face. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, I actually just put out an episode of The Marketing Musician, which I hadn't done in like months. I think I'm going to make that a monthly podcast because I found something that was really cool about upsells and how there was an interesting article on the Jersey Shore, like Viacom stock, like their ad revenue went up like 14% the day after the Jersey Shore. Are you familiar with the Jersey Shore, Jim?
Oh yeah.
And here they said they open up stores called Jersey Stores with all the T-shirts and paraphernalia and the Schnooky lunchbox or whatever it was. And they said they had the cashiers ask, "Would you like one of these signature shot glasses?" They sold 500,000 shot glasses. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, holy cow. So it was just the interesting thing of upsells. And I was like, hey, you know what? That audience would like this information. So yeah, I keep killing and bringing back Feeding My Faith. It's now a 2-minute podcast. Why? Because I don't have time to do a 15-minute podcast. So it's me reading a little scripture going, here's what I think about that, including one that I have no idea what that means. That makes no sense to me, and off we go. So, but here's the thing. I'm pretty adamant on this. If you're mailing in your podcast, you're going to get mail it in results.
Right.
And that podcast is one I'm like, you know what? I should just probably not do that. So. Yeah. I see Gary says the PM banner in the back. Thank you, Mr. Leland. I've actually found a company I can actually, there's a couple different ways you can hang this. There's all sorts of, that was one of the things I spent probably a good hour this week. Like, how do I hang a banner? And I'm at this point, I still want to move. I might do this today. My wife is off with some friends playing, and I keep saying I'm going to rearrange my office. And I think today's the day I'm gonna do that. But I do want to say, how are we doing on time? Wow, flying by. We should say hello to Andy Sokolovich. Sokolovich, who is one of our new awesome supporters.
Nice.
Of Ask the Podcast Coach. If you'd like to be an awesome supporter, go to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. And speaking of awesome, Daniel J. Lewis, if you're bored, give us a call, buddy. He's got a new thing going on that is kind of like, I think it's the service that we're going to see popping up. I mean, I've kind of got my little Castermine. Daniel's got, I know it's PS. I'm trying to remember what the heck it stands for now. But
Podcast Society. That's
it. Which is actually, I wonder if he got that from, cool. He's, my brain, apparently I left my brain. Michael Stelzner has the social media society that I joined, which is actually really cool. And a lot of community going on over there and things like that. And they do like monthly trainings.
It's in response to the growth, right? The growth of podcasting. So as podcasting gets bigger, we have to get smaller. And then people like the Facebook groups have gotten so big, the conversation's out of control and it's not as helpful, anymore. You're kind of, and so as you move on, you're like, I'd like some significant conversation around this. And so I think these are nice to get set up. And if you need that more, if you're looking for those groups like we had 5 years ago when we first started doing this, and it was just us talking to ourselves, and it was a little more intimate in the conversation and maybe a little more helpful sometimes, and not so trolling. I think these, like what Daniel's trying to do, and you with your Castermine is a good way to do it for sure. We're trying to do meetups with Gallup. So this is as the conversation gets bigger, we're trying to do these local meetups and get those going. That's similar to what podcasters are doing as well. But you just got to get smaller groups. 5,000 is not scalable.
Oh yeah, joining us on the phone, the one, the only, Daniel J. Lewis, buddy. How's it going?
Hey, Dave and Jim. Good to talk to you guys.
Yeah. This I saw your picture that Jenny put on Facebook, which was hilarious because she said normally Daniel has this kind of, wasn't stone faced, but sullen, kind of just, the serious Daniel. And on launch day, you got to see Daniel actually smile. And I'm like, really? Because I don't know. You don't seem that, seem like a pretty fun guy. And so congrats on launching a new service. Tell us a little bit about it.
Thank you. It's Podcasters Society. It's a rebirth of an idea I had several years ago to make Podcast Masterclass, which was supposed to be a month-long course helping you take your podcast from average to amazing. Because what I'm really passionate about is helping podcasters improve what they do. Yes, helping people launch is great, but a lot of people launch and then they fizzle out because either they're not doing things well or they don't have vision, they're not planning things. So I really wanted people to continue on after episode 1. So over the last year, I've been working on this idea of Podcasters Society that would be an exclusive community for only existing podcasters. You must have an active podcast or have a podcast in iTunes in order to be a member. That way we can move beyond the questions like, how do I get an RSS feed? To then moving into more advanced questions like, how do I make my RSS feed better? I've got it. I know how to use it. I don't know how to enhance it. Stuff like that. But taking it really up to a higher level, if you like that, and making it so that we can together improve our podcast. So it will be a combination of weekly webinars with training, special guests, Q&A. There is a live community of forums and both a Slack team where we can chat in real time and discuss things, and exclusive discounts and some other cool stuff coming. So it's all focused on helping you grow your podcast from average to amazing.
And here's what I thought this would be an interesting discussion point. And this is going to be good because if somebody joins, they're probably open for this. But I heard a couple people, this little topic coming up. I heard it on the talent show, which is Michael Sharkey's. He's kind of from the same realm of Eric K. Johnson. He's a talent coach. And he was saying that he's heard that podcasters aren't open to, what's the word? Constructive criticism, I guess. Like they're not willing to change their podcast. Do you think what are your thoughts on that topic?
I think some podcasters aren't, certainly. And those podcasters are going to be podcasters who won't be interested in Podcasters Society anyway. But what I see of the people who are here, these are people who do want to improve and do accept constructive criticism. And one of the guys in the group, Max Flight, posted something in the forums saying, sometimes I can come across as a little bit too harsh, but I'm not intending to be. Just let me know to back off if I'm being too direct. And I think that's great to have that kind of honesty and transparency and realize that we're not just saying you should do better or you're doing this badly. It's here's what I've seen that works to improve. Let's improve each other. And this isn't just about attacking people. It's not about attacking people
right.
at all. It's about building each other up and making our podcast amazing.
That's it. Because it's one thing to say, I don't like the way this worked or this didn't work for me. Okay, great. But what would you do differently? I mean, anybody can complain. It's when you can give that, okay, here's maybe another way to do this, or here's another tool that might work for you, or things of that nature. And so Mark Johansson says, Daniel's dishing out the tough love. Well, sometimes I think you need that in a way. So, Jim, what do you think about people accepting criticism?
Yeah, I think this is good. I mean, like I said, it's the opportunity. Just for those who will take it, they will get better, right? It's just one of those things. For those who fight it, well, it's just, you're just going to stay in the state that you're in. So I think it's super important. Daniel, Mike Uyghur, who my co-host on Home Gadget Geeks, has joined the society. So I'll get a chance in there to hear from him. Kind of how that goes. So no, I like it. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a way to bring the community together, and excited to see how that goes for you.
And help pay for that move to Arizona.
Right. It's really something that I've not been excited about a podcasting project more than I have been about this. This is thrilling to me, and to launch this and see people joining and participating in this, it's really exciting. I'm more excited about this than anything else I've ever done up to this point.
Daniel, don't you think this brings back, kind of was alluding to earlier, is kind of the early days of collaboration that we did together that's got, with the groups got bigger, those collaborative spaces got more diluted, and this kind of brings it back to a more serious conversation as opposed to some of the less serious things we talk about in the Facebook groups and such?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what really was pushing me, especially this year, to go ahead and take action on this because I was seeing these communities, and I try to participate in a lot of those different communities, and they are great podcasting communities on Facebook, Google+, Reddit, all of these places. But I would see many of the same questions over and over, and many of those questions would be like, what kind of microphone should I get? Where should I host my podcast? Those kinds of questions, and it would often crowd out the other questions of people who were asking basically, how do I improve my show? And sometimes when someone would ask, how do I improve my show? Because there wasn't sort of a barrier to entry or investment in some sort in the community by each person there, that they are taking risks or they're making some kind of investment to be there. Sometimes the answers back would be very low quality, unfortunately. And that's not to say the people are low quality, but sometimes it's just not really focused. It's more like just a community to say anything and everything about podcasting instead of being a community focused on improving what we already have.
Well, and I think sometimes in the groups, people they want to help, but they don't have the time to really type out the answer maybe they should. So it's kind of like, what microphone should I use or whatever. It's like, here's the one you use, blah, blah, blah. And then they leave. So it's not that they're trying to be rude. They're just like, I've got to go do this or that, or I've got to go type my show notes or things like that. The website is podcast. Look at you being all smart. Because I typed in Podcaster Society and it redirects to Podcasters Society, which makes sense. You want that to be plural. And